Welcome back after a 6 week hiatus. This is
Ooh,
Quantum Alchemist, episode 12 of season 2. I am your host, as always, Mr. Alchemistic, but you can call me B, and I am joined by my very gracious co host, Mr. Quantum himself, Alex Romero Benjian.
what's up, B? What's up, everybody? Man, it's great to talk to you today. We've been chatting a little bit off air before. I definitely feel like we gave some gold away there, but it's okay because here we are. And I've missed you, brother. I know there's a lot to catch up on. We've got a little bit of the backstory here, but for you folks who haven't had a chance to see what's been going on, B and I, we've been busy. Lots been happening.
We're a
Um,
couple of nomads at the moment, a couple of men with no home. Yeah. Yeah, I've been traveling, both of us, traveled back to LA for a very traumatizing week.
yeah.
Alex had also, the week before I went to LA, you went to LA for another, unfortunately, Alex lost his mother. My condolences to you, brother. I know that was, I'm sure you had time to prepare for it, but you can never prepare for losing a parent. So my heart's with you as somebody who's lost a parent. I know how it is. It's kind of just this void that is created in your life that it really never goes away. It's just something you learn to deal with. So my heart goes
Yeah.
out to you, brother. I love you, man. Like that's tough.
Thank you.
Um,
I'll be honest with you, like, her and I, we we had spent some time apart and stuff, but like I feel like now after everything right before she passed, we had to spend a great deal of time together and like as she was, closing out her unresolved, issues, unfinished business as they call it before passing over, like I really do feel like I feel her presence more now than when she was alive, and that brings comfort in a way too. Like I feel her around, which is really cool.
that's
Something
good,
new.
man. It's
Yeah.
at least you had that time, right? That was a blessing. Like that's something that I was never given with my dad. My dad just kind of was gone in a shot, so I didn't really get to. I did go out and visit him a few months before he passed away, so I did get to spend some time with him. But like the trauma of losing him is still something. We just went past Father's Day yesterday, and I was just thinking about him yesterday, and it's 8 years this year. It's going to be 8 years that we lost him, and he would have been 70. Would have been 70 years old. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. It's like guys, you just gotta uh, take the time you have with your loved ones and don't take it for granted. Like really take advantage of it while you have them here. And if you're estranged from them, fix that by all means. If you can, try to reach out because it's a blessing to have these people around you, to have your family around you. And you went to LA because your mom passed. I went to LA with my mom because her mom, my grandma, is very deep in down the path of dementia. She's like kind of childlike at this point. We don't have a lot of time left with her, so we had to go and spend some time with her, which is very traumatic. But it's still to have that time to be able to spend time with her when we were far away. She's in Hemet, California. We're in Georgia right at the moment, and yeah, so it's like we're trying to take advantage of the time we have with her still, and it's not easy. It's not easy to see a loved one in that state. She's basically a child at this point, and it's crazy to see what the human mind does when it's deteriorating. It just you lose all your faculties. You lose like your sense of identity, which is something we talk about is the labels and the identifying who the ego identifies, right, and with the self. And you see somebody in that state and it's like they have no ego anymore. It's like the ego's died. It's like there's the identityless person. They don't remember things. It's very sporadic, and it's almost like in a dream state. Um, so it really puts consciousness in perspective of like what actually defines us. And so it is it's one of those things, man. It was very. I was talking to Alex in the pre-talk about how it was a very traumatic week, and I was I landed in LA the day that the riot started, and Alex, you left LA the day the riot started. So
Yeah, I landed in Miami the day that they started.
yeah, and I landed in LA when they started. So it was kind of like a welcome back. This place is still a shit show, and it kind of made me not miss LA at all. Like I was trying to, I went back. I got to see my brother, who is still living there, my twin brother, and that's a traumatic thing too. Is like that distance between him and I. Like I've never spent this much time away from him. I've been out of LA for 9 months, and going back to LA, I was looking forward to seeing him. But then I land in the city, and this chaos is going on, which was kind of far from us. We were in Orange County. You know, it's happening in Paramount, which is LA County. But still, just the fact that like I land in LA and there's this shit popping off, and it just reminded
Yeah,
me like, oh yeah, this city is dying. It's literally a dying city. The energy in that place is very toxic, and unfortunately for the people who still live there, it's a very draining environment. And you see why people in LA are kind of miserable. You know, it's like you fly into that city and you know you're flying over the desert and all of a sudden you come upon this big concrete monolith
the grid,
that
the big
is
grid.
it's huge, right? Like comparatively when you leave Georgia, right, you're going over green spots and you're going over, and there's these cities, right? You see cities as you're flying, but then you get to LA and it's literally like 80 square miles. It's like a huge concrete jungle, and like as soon as you fly over it, it's just like you feel it, right? It's like this mass of humanity, this energy that's being pushed out by the city, and then you land in it, and that chaos is going on. It's like here we go, back in LA, and it's really, I feel like one of the themes we wanted to talk about today was allies and information, and
Right.
I feel like it's
Thank you.
relevant because
Thank
of
you, Mama D, for the inspiration on the topic. Please continue.
yeah, Mama D, thank you for watching. You're one of our biggest supporters, and I appreciate you. Um, yeah, it's hard to say. Like when you're on this path, when you're on this journey, like it's very isolating because you see things that a lot of people don't, and it's really puts you on an island in a lot of ways, especially with your people who are your loved ones that maybe aren't on the same path as you. It's really hard to communicate with them sometimes the things that you see and the understandings you have of what this place really is. So it's hard to have, you know, a lot of times you feel like you don't have allies. You don't, and then you see things like, you know, what happened this past weekend with the demonstrations, the uprising, if you will. I wouldn't call it an uprising, but it was the protests. You know, and then there's the Trump parade in Washington.
Mhm.
And there's it's just this very
Okay.
polarizing atmosphere
Right.
of where we're at right now in this country,
And
and
then
both of
the
these,
black eye ceremonies.
yeah, and like it's the stuff with Elon that just popped off when I was in LA, where he, you know, put out this tweet about Trump in the Epstein files, and so it's like all this chaos, right? And then Israel and Iran is another thing, and you know,
Yep.
Israel has already been bombing Gaza to hell, and there's been a
Yeah.
lot of controversy with that, and I feel like people are starting to wake up to the whole Israeli regime and their whole mo. But like,
Let's not get it
seems
twisted.
like
Hold on a second. I want to talk about that. I'm glad you said that because you know what? Let's talk about the realness and know that first of all, these guys are like the head of the world, the global intelligence community. All right. So if they're getting their asses reamed, bro, trust me, they're hitting data centers. They're hitting motherfucking computers.
hmm,
Right? Because these guys, they got all the dirt on everybody, and all they do is they instigate motherfuckers all in the around the world to pin them against each other, and they're the guys on the sidelines directing the whole fucking thing, like the puppet masters, bro.
game warfare.
Bro, let's not pretend that's not what's going on. So, you know, if they're out there smashing them, bro, like good. Like, bro, they need to get the fuck up out of all of our shits, all of our devices, bro. Get the fuck up out of our devices, guys.
Hmm. You know what? Before we really delve into this, I have a really good quote from Omar Mikhail Ivanov that kind of speaks to, the topic of the time of the day. Um, this is from Daily Meditations from Omar Mikhail Ivanov. Look at the crowds of people coming and going in the streets of a town. Their paths cross and come together. They are close enough to jostle each other, and yet each one goes his separate way, bent exclusively on his own business. There is no cohesion and consequently no power in a crowd such as this. But then from the crowd emerges a single human being who begins to harangue them with such determination and assurance that many gather round and listen. Some, indeed, carried away by the strength of his convictions, follow him and espouse his cause. All of a sudden, because a head, a leader, has appeared, the crowd coheres around him and acquires tremendous strength and power. This is an image of what can happen within you. If your life seems to have no meaning, it is because all your organs, all the cells of your body are in disarray and without cohesion. So make up your minds to stand up and talk to the population that inhabits you and persuade them to follow you on a divine path. The slogan, strength through unity, does not apply only to one country or one society. It applies to every human being. Every human being must awaken the forces lying dormant in his consciousness, his subconsciousness, and the cells of his body, and marshal them in the service of one central idea, so that the image of God lying deep within him may shine forth.
That's so crazy, bro. That kind of like talks upon the stuff I was telling you about in the pre-talk
Mm-hmm.
about getting everyone to work with each other instead of against each other.
No, I felt like that, dude. I came across that quote the other day. I was like, man, I got to use that whenever we record again. I got to find a way to get that in there. And then you told me what you wanted to talk about. I was like, I think that quote would fit, because it's like we're all running around here like chickens with our head cut off. Especially if you're an ideologue, there's so much to chew into as far as like polarizing content, right? Like if you're a lefty, you have no shortage of things that make you hate Trump and everybody who loves hit Trump, right? And if you're a Trumper, there's no shortage of stuff for you to chew into, right? And it just exacerbates this this polarization of like fighting poles fighting each other.
Yeah,
Whereas
but
the
the thing is, that it's gotten weird lately, and I'm sorry for cutting you off. It's gotten really weird lately because even the Trumpers have been like, "Whoa, wait a minute, this isn't the Trump we signed up for." Now granted, like there's been some stuff all the way up leading up to like the Iran Israel thing, which I'm really grateful for that he did not get us involved. That he vetoed the whole thing and from us getting because I know that the war rhinos and those guys they all were like, yeah, let's fucking go. And Trump was like, fucking I support that. We don't need to be getting involved in any more shit. Not like we're not in Yemen right now, okay? No one's talking about that, right? But like openly getting us into some other conflict, we don't need to be getting involved in any more shit. And like granted, we don't need to be the world police, but that's again like, now we're getting into stuff that's above my pay grade. It's just a matter of like we need to bring it back here. And the focus again, where attention goes, energy flows, man. We talk about this all the time on this podcast. If they have their attention somewhere else, guess what? They're sending all their money somewhere freaking else. They're not putting it here where it needs to be with the people who are going through stuff here, right?
Mhm.
That's just my 2 pennies, bro.
No, I think there's so like I feel like the people who voted Trump in are having the same type of response to a lot of the people that voted Biden in, right? Is like, wait a minute, this isn't what we voted for, right? It's the purple people, man. This pendulum is swinging. The purple people, it swings back and forth, right? Like, so the people who maybe voted for Trump but like aren't necessarily red are starting to look at the things that he's doing and be like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what I voted for. Or like say like we're supposed to get like the Epstein files, we're supposed to get the JFK, the MLK, like all there's supposed to be a bunch of transparency. And we started like kind of chipping away with Doge, with Elon, uncovering a lot of this fraud and abuse and waste. But then it kind of like there was this backlash against it, and then it went away, and now we haven't heard anything And then Elon comes out and like is having a quarrel with Trump now, right? So it's like they're pulling this public psyche. It's the people in the middle, right? They're pulling. It's the pendulum is swinging, and you have to understand like the attention, right, is like getting pulled one way and another way and another way, and it's all
Right.
distraction to keep the polarizations uh,
To bring you to the
on
middle.
their sides, right? It's to keep us from coming together in the middle, right? Like, and so we got to keep the purple people swinging back and forth, like not and maybe questioning their own choices. Of like maybe I shouldn't have voted for Trump, and then they start to swing back to the left. But then, like, where is there to grab onto on the left? Like the left is completely like one of the things I've been seeing a lot is the commentary about how the left has lost male voters, like young males are completely have abandoned the left, and rightfully so. The left basically told men to go fuck themselves, and a lot of us men have been like, well, fuck you too, like you guys don't speak for us, right? So there's a bunch of young men who are searching for an identity, and then they see it here, they're gravitating towards Trump, but with the pendulum swinging, right? It's like thesis, antithesis, synthesis. That's what we've
Yeah. Yeah.
Hegelian dialectic
Yeah.
is traditionally, if you look at politics, how we've operated, right? How the powerful operate is they you have your thesis, which is, let's call it, the left is the thesis, Trump is the antithesis, right? And then we find somewhere in the middle, and
Yeah.
we've been ping ponged back and forth for the last 10 years between these two ideals, right? Of like there's the woke and then there's the anti woke. And that somewhere we have to find the middle ground to move
Well, let me ask
forward,
you a
or else we
question.
destroy each other.
Let me ask you a question. And now, I don't know how involved. Like, I send you a couple links. I know that you're not on X at all, but I participate in X Spaces like once or twice a week. I try to at least. Sometimes life happens and I can't make it, but I've been so Mike Decentralized, if you're watching, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on to co-host and speak on your platform sometimes as an I guess you could say as like a speaker on the technological side of things. Um, but the reason I bring that up is because, he's a very big proponent of the Libertarian Party, and right now we're in this place where we've lost trust in the left, right? We lost trust in the left. We lost trust in the. We're losing more trust in the right, and it's like, what are the chances that we may actually have an opportunity for having a purple party, a Libertarian Party? To come in and actually gain those votes for the first time in ever, really, right? Since no one could trust either side, and now maybe we open up the opportunity for a different type of America. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there as an opportunity,
No,
as a possibility.
I feel like the door's never been open more for a third party. Like I feel like people have been dying for it. The Trump era has kind of, not kind of, definitely highlighted the need for it. Like I feel like the MAGA movement has tried to be that kind of third route, right? Because it's not
Yeah,
neocon. It's definitely like Trump movement is not neocon as much as the far left wants to paint MAGA as far right. Like it's far from neocon as you. It's really a middle movement, right? But also like I feel like Trump is is just like Elon, man. We had this conversation when Elon made that post. It's like I feel like Elon's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. I feel like there's this. It's all just attention. It's like pulling you by the with the carrot, pulling you by the nose. It's just about keeping people disoriented and confused, and not finding any kind of solidarity or solid ground, or common ground across the aisle, right? It's just chaos. It's just absolute
yeah,
social chaos seems to be the flavor of the moment. and there really seems to be no unifying force. And maybe it needs to come to a head to a point where someone does rise up as a unifying force and can speak to both sides, but there's just this refusal, and everyone seems to have their heels dug in one way or the other. Like the left, it feels like Bill Maher has kind of trying to be that middle guy where he's like trying to speak some sense to the far left, but there's no speaking sense to these people. These people are completely polarized, and they think that they're the good guys. That's the problem with these ideologies, is like it's just like the Puritans, right? Like once an ideology has its followers convinced that they're the good guys, it's really hard to get people off those ideologies. It's why ideologies in general are so dangerous, because you become ingrained with this sense of righteousness, right? With moral, they you believe you have the moral high
World
ground.
Cup.
Everybody below you needs to go, and like there's no, it's really hard to get push people off the moral high ground that they think they have. So a lot of these ideologies have done this is the kind of the it's the structure of the ideology is to create an environment where the followers of the ideology believe that their way is the only way. It's what's been done to the Christians for hundreds of years, is and it's what's happening right now on the far left. And you look at stuff like I've actually been coming across videos talking about Albert Pike and his script for the three world wars that he wrote in the late 19th century. His letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. I've talked about this before. Albert Pike was a high ranking member of the Scottish Freemasonry, and he wrote this letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, who was the godfather of the modern mob. Right, so these are high big time players in the behind the scenes. They weren't necessarily known in the power structures of history, right? These guys aren't historically known by the masses, but in their time, they were power brokers in the shadows. They were power brokers behind the scenes. And Albert Pike wrote this letter about three world wars that they were scripting for the 20th century, like how they were going to sway policy for the next 100 years or whatever. And the script for the first two world wars were hits right on. It's like exactly what they were set out to do with these world wars is exactly what happened. The first world war was destroying the Ottoman Empire and their influence in Europe, and basically fragmenting out the Ottoman Empire and saddling Germany with this huge debt. And then World War II was to bring about a Jewish state in Palestine, and both of those objectives were hit on the head by each world war. And then the third world war was scripted to be an ideological war where the Muslims and the Jews would destroy each other, where the Christians and the atheists would destroy each other. It was like dividing people on ideological lines and polarizing them to the point where they would fight each other and mutually destroy each other. And that was the goal of World War III. And I feel like we've been in World War III for roughly 40 years, because the Cold War was something that started right after, I mean, really right after World War II. So, I mean, you could probably go back to the 50s or 60s and say that the seeds of World War III were planted with the Cold War, because with the Russians versus the United States and their ideological differences of communism and capitalism. Or if you could go religiously, you'd say like that, communism represents atheism, and the United States capitalism represents Christianity. At least, ideologically speaking, you could either do it economically or philosophically. These are different ideologies that were pitted against each other. And then obviously you look at the formation of the Jewish state in Palestine and how that's basically divided the Middle East and created this hornet's nest in the Middle East ever since the creation of that state. And it's really pit the Jews against the Muslims in a big way, where like you go back and people, when you talk about this conflict, they'll say, "Oh, it's always been that way. The Jews have always hated the Arabs," and it's like, not really. There's times in history, like not in the really distant past, where Jews and Muslims got along. I mean, if you really go back to the lineage, they're from the same heritage. They're from
Right.
Abraham, right? It's like
Right.
they come there. It's like Esau and Jacob and Esau, right? They both came from Isaac, who was from Abraham. Father Abraham had many sons, and so they're from the same lineage. And you know, I have Muslim friends who say like Jews are like our we consider them our cousins, you know. And there's this misconception that there's this vile hatred between each other, but I mean, other than people who are living in Israel and Gaza and Israel,
Palestine.
like there is some cohesion outside of there, right? Like um, they don't necessarily not there's not a blood hatred. It's just picture that's been painted in this country because Israel owns our government and owns our entertainment and owns basically our the narrative, right? Or has owned the narrative in a lot of ways. If you really look at
And they
who's
own the media, so they're able to. Oh,
yeah,
they're
if
yeah, because of that.
if you look at who's writing the script, there's a reason why the Muslims are painted a certain way. It's because look at our Congress; they're all bought by the Israeli government. So it's public opinion has been constructed that way. But anyway, back to what I was talking about is like this is an ideological war. What's happening, and if you don't see it, then you're not really looking. It's about putting you in these ideological boxes and getting you to fight the opposite, the other, right? Is like highlighting the other, like that's our enemy. And it's really obvious. It's really, really obvious and right now in this country, it's Democrat and Republican, right? Or liberal and MAGA. It's like this fucking blood war psychologically. It's a psychological war that's been inflicted upon our psyche, and a lot of people have bought into it because ultimately human nature is kind of geared towards that type of thinking. Unfortunately, it seems to be the shadow has played this playbook on our psyche for basically all of human history. You know, is
Right.
like getting us to fight over differences and keep us from that oneness that is the underlying truth of existence, that we're all just part of God's consciousness, but there's this shadow that's trying to throw a wrench in the works. So ultimately, we got to become allies with each other, the ones that see this, right, and use that information that we have to try to sway the energy, right?
Yep.
Because um, I had this conversation with this she's a Reiki healer that I follow on Instagram. She put something out in her story about women being more spiritual, and I do feel like you look at the spiritual landscape, and I feel like the female vessel is definitely more conducive to spirituality, right? Maybe not so much religion because religion is anti-feminine, but the spiritual spaces are dominated by women. But the male vessel, when it is fully awakened, can shift the world, right? Like, because men won't listen to women. Like it's really hard for a woman to stand on a leadership role and capture the imaginations of men. But people like ourselves, Alex, like awakened male vessels, if you can come to that balance with your feminine energy and masculine, like the we're like the transmitters, right? The feminine vessels are the receivers of divine energy. We're the ones who transmit it. So it's like we have to come to this place on this spiritual path where we recognize the strengths of each other, and we work together, because we're ultimately what we're doing is we're creating the crystalline grid for the awakening, for the shift that in consciousness that's happening. And we can't play gender Olympics and oh, women are great and men suck. We can't fall into that. That's another, divisive
Trap.
ideological like
Trap.
thing. That's the feminist versus the misogynist, right? It's like this male versus female dynamic that is very prevalent as well, because the shadow does not want men and women getting along, because if we have awakened men and women working together, we will topple it. So
Yep.
and that's something that I've
Divine
noticed.
masculine, divine masculine, divine feminine.
That's something that I've noticed in the spiritual spaces. Is there's even like there's just a lot of really great women in the spiritual spaces, right? This woman that Willow's Quest 111 is her Instagram and TikTok. She's great. She's a great Reiki healer. You look in her eyes and you tell she's got divine energy. But with her and other people like her, women, they tend to do this cheerleading thing for the feminine energy of like I get it, like the feminine has been downtrodden and suppressed for eons, and I get wanting to get behind the feminine movement, but there's also you can very easily get captured by the feminist movement, which is not that's a movement of the shadow, right? Is that the feminist movement, the modern feminist movement, is very detrimental to our progress forward, because it captures you in identity. It wants the females, very powerful spiritual females, to be almost overly empowered in their feminine, and that brings them out of balance, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing, and I'm gonna probably catch a lot
Feminine,
of flack. I'm gonna catch
feminine,
a lot
not
of flack for
feminine.
this. There's a lot of people awakening right now on the male side, but they're awakening to their feminine energy. But unfortunately, with the trans movement going on right now, a lot of alchemists like myself have been captured as trans. They think they're trans, right? Because they awaken to their feminine energy, and it brings them out of balance the opposite way. And then they start identifying as female when it's really just no, you're awakening to your feminine energy, and you have to find a way to pull the balance back in, and not identify really as one or the other, because we all of us are both. Everyone has both energies, and we have to be aware of these traps that the shadow tries to bring us out of balance of our polarity. Like if you balance your poles, you're the most powerful being on the planet, and the shadow has to keep you from that. So there are these
Mm-hmm.
traps within the spiritual community that are pulling people out of balance, and so it's just awareness of that. We're almost out of time, so let's get to part two. But I just wanted to finish that thought. Like it's something that's been on my mind for a while. Like um, I don't. I'm not trying to denigrate the trans people. Like obviously there are people who really are um, both, right? Or they maybe they're born in the wrong body or whatever. I don't want to speak to that experience, but I know for a fact, because of the downloads I've received, that there's a lot of male alchemists who have been pulled into a trans identity when they've awakened their feminine, because that's the way the shadow pulls you out. And there's a transhumanist agenda in the trans movement where it's like it has that's a whole other rabbit hole to get into with transhumanism and trying to destroy individual identity completely.
Right.
So that I think that's something that needs to be talked about. I don't hear anybody talking about it, but it's definitely a download I've received, and it's something I feel like is really maybe something we could elaborate on in a future
We can
episode.
touch,
But
maybe we can touch upon that when we get back a little bit.
yeah, let's take a break. We'll be back with episode 12 here
Awesome.
of Quantum Alchemist. See you in a minute.
That is the reason why every religion is interested in converting people. Because every religion, every priest, every pope, every saint, every ayatollah, every Sankaracharya, all are deep down full of doubts. Because belief cannot destroy doubts. Belief can only repress doubts. A blind man can believe in light, but that does not mean he knows light. All your believers are blind people who don't know anything about the truth. Hence, the doubt is just repressed underneath the belief.
And we are back with part two of episode 12, Quantum Alchemist. And we left you guys off talking about transhumanism and alchemy being an alchemist, and how when you have the spiritual awakening to take this path of alchemy, you realize that there is gender in everything. You look at the Hermetic principles, the seven laws of Hermes. One of them is the principle of gender, the law of gender, that there is a masculine and feminine aspect to everything. And us included, every biological entity,
Yep.
specifically when it
Weak
comes to
body.
humans, just because you're a masculine vessel doesn't mean you don't have feminine energy, and vice versa. If you're a feminine vessel, you have masculine energy, and I think to come to our full power as creators and biological entities in the creator's image is about understanding that the soul has no gender or has both genders. It's about bringing the polarity together, which my shirt kind of represents this, right? You see the pink and the blue and the black and the white coming together in this harmony, right? Into this oneness. And this is like, the smiley face. This is, to me, this artwork that I created illustrates this concept. This is the alchemist, right? Is the fully balanced feminine, masculine, light and shadow into one entity. And it's about coming into balance within yourself. And you look at the transhumanist agenda, it's about uploading your consciousness and living forever, overcoming death. It's like, this is kind of like the culmination of human technology. We're coming to this point with our technology where we're going to have the ability to download consciousness or upload consciousness, and have this option. And there's a lot of things that go in with it. And Alex and I were talking about. Alex was talking to AI about it. What's coming for us with the and I feel like the trans movement in the LGBTQ community, I feel like while there are valid trans people, I feel like a lot of people have been captured by the ideology who are just really just alchemists having spiritual awakenings. They're either male or female that have come to the realization of the polar opposite energy within them, and there's no um, resources within the mainstream that explain to you this spiritual concept. Like, it's really kind of been hidden from us. This truth. It's kind of been part of the secret societies and the information, the knowledge that's been suppressed is
Right.
this concept of the feminine and masculine within the individual coming into
Right.
balance, right? But you look at all these mystical traditions and secret initiation rituals and a lot of the spiritual stuff that's kind of been hidden from the mainstream. It really talks about this a lot, and it's a very core concept of alchemy. Is the alchemist must come to a balance within themselves of the masculine and the feminine to discover the philosopher's stone within them. And there's all kinds of different symbolism used to illustrate this. In this piece behind me, um, I've talked about this in past episodes. There's the different stages of the alchemist: the black, the white, and the red. Negrito, albedo, rubedo, the masculine, the feminine, and the child. And there's just a lot of different symbolisms to illustrate this. There's mercury, sulfur, and salt, right? The three different stages. Mercury represents the feminine, and sulfur represents the masculine. There's the sun and the moon up here. The sun and the moon. The sun is the masculine. The moon is the feminine, right? And it's I really kind of encompassed all of it into the symbolism in this piece behind me. Um, there's a lot of different symbolism used by these different mystic traditions, these different secret societies, if you will, to illustrate this concept. We got the black pillar and the white pillar, Boaz and Jachin or Yachin or whatever you want to call it, the pillars of Solomon's temple. And then we got the pyramid here, which is the temple of the body, if you really want to delve into this stuff, and then you come to the place where you awaken the eye, the third eye, right? So it's this concept of balancing the polarities. And it's really all the symbolism in my artwork. Really, if you really look at all my pieces, kind of is illustrating this concept. And
which which I absolutely love that, like the complexity and the depth in those pieces, like, you know, most people we go back to level of understanding, that right there, what you're talking about right now, it might be a lot for a lot of people. It might go way over people's heads.
oh yeah,
Uh, and this is part of like the part of the journey process is like you got to get yourself to a place where these things when when you hear them that they click or something like a spark goes off because these are the keys to your reality. These are the keys to the universe. Like literally embedded in symbolism and art and everything that you see, and like whenever you go out in the street you see road signs, like they're they're that shape and they're those words for a reason. Like there's a meaning behind everything.
yeah,
um
and part of how they've kept us in the dark and kept us down in those lower three chakras, at the bottom in Malkuth, um, is by keeping this knowledge from us, right? Like the language of symbolism. Manly P. Hall famously said, uh, when mankind learns the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from his consciousness, right? Because there's a lot of veiled symbolism in, this is something you sent me, that video that was talking about this very concept of symbolism, right? In like company logos and this type of stuff. And it kind of, a lot of this subtle symbolism keeps the construct of the matrix together. And a lot of the symbolism, like in this piece, for example, right? There's a lot of Freemasonic symbolism that, like, if you weren't um, learned, if you weren't learned in the symbolism, you would say it's satanic, right? A lot of this is something that I kind of came across when I was searching in these rabbit holes.
it's for the
Um,
devil.
the demonization of a lot of the symbolism as satanic. And what you guys got to understand is, like, all this magic stuff that deals with symbolism, it's intention based, right? Like, yes, it can be used for evil, but there's
Just
also a tremendous amount of good that can be done if you use it with a proper intention. This is magic in general. Magic can be very dark and very destructive, but it also, look at the works of Christ. Like, Christ healed people, and he brought Lazarus back from the dead. He walked on water. He changed water to wine. And Christ said, like, all these things and more you will do because I'm going to the Father, right? Like, so if you look at the works of Christ and the things he was able to accomplish in a vessel, right, in a human vessel, like a lot of people, oh, he was God, and like, yes, he had awakened God within him. Because the body is
he
the temple of
embodied
the
he
the body is
embodied
the
God.
temple of the living God, right? And that's the truth that he was trying to put across in his message. But he said, all these things and more you will do. He said the kingdom is within you, right? The body is a temple. There's so much of Christ's message that has been lost because the church has misconstrued it, right? And if you looked at the works of Christ, and you stripped away the story, right, and you just strictly looked at the things that he was able to do within the vessel, you would say, oh, this guy's a magician, right? This guy does magic because the things he did were magical. But then,
There's
like,
a
on the other side, you have the church saying all magic is evil. So was Christ evil? No. Like, it's like there's a certain amount of demonization that is done on the works of the body, that the body is capable of, demonizing it as evil. When you have a capability, when you're when you're at when you've assimilated and integrated your shadow and come to this balance as an alchemist, you're going to be able to do certain things that
that's supernatural.
people would call supernatural, or That's why I feel like the church has done more of a disservice to Christ than anything, because it's masked the capability of the body, right?
Potential of potential.
Because it's has people afraid of seeing what their full potential is, and have people afraid of of breaking out of the construct of the matrix, that the limits that the matrix puts on us. And it's part of the shadow, right? It's part of the shadow of fear around becoming what you're really supposed to be
Right.
and what God intended us to be. We're made in God's image. And so much of Christ's work on earth was about unearthing our potential and showing us the way, right? Showing us the way, the to take up the cross and walk in his shoes as the Christic path, to walk the path of Christ. And if you told people today, I'm walking the path of Christ, they would say you're a blasphemer, right? They would say, how dare you? There's only one. But it's like you're ignoring the work that and then the words of Christ in a lot of ways, because Christ said all these things and more you will do. So
Right.
it's like it's this weird place that it's like I feel I've made this analogy before, but like Christ is like a boat, right? And to you got to sail the boat out into the ocean, which is mysticism, right? To really find the full benefits of Christ's message. But the church has constructed this marina that keeps the boats in this safe little harbor and tells you don't go out to the ocean. It's evil out
It's
there, right?
dangerous. Yeah.
So like and so it's doing us this huge disservice where there's so much potential in the teachings of Christ, of what he was trying to get across to us. And you find it in all these different mystic traditions. Like the mystics are all in agreement, whether it be Sufi Muslims or Kabbalist Jews, or you know Gnostic Christians, or Sikh, or you know what I mean. Like you find all these mystic traditions, Taoist, Buddhists. There are mystic traditions that are, you look at their principles, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Hermetic principles, and they all correlate. They're all
Right.
saying basically the
There are
same
parallels.
thing.
A lot of
And
parallels.
so behind in the ideologies, we've lost the real truth. And part of what's happening now is we're at this huge shifting point where we can go one way or the other. We've talked about this shit, the fracturing of the two worlds. Like there's going to be two worlds, like
The
the
old world
world.
and the new world.
Yeah. Like, if you can't, if you're clinging to this separation, then separation you'll get, and it'll be very, it's just going to be very hard for those people, because the truth is going to be in their face. And if you don't accept the truth, you're going to be positioned in this very dark world. And
Because
I
you're living in
feel
denial. You're literally you're living not only in denial, but you're living a lie.
it's
And the lie only exists in your head because everyone else sees the truth. You just choosing not to see it.
I'm going to read this Manly P. Hall quote. I'm not really sure if it really, let's see if I was just drawn to it. So let me read it real quick. I think it's going to resonate. But um, this is from The Psychology of Religious Ritual. The resurrection of the spiritual from the material and the restoration of the golden age are not only the dreams of poets, but sovereign realities, possible to man when he understands his own origin and destiny. The Greeks like to think of the day when all the world would prosper under the government and wise authority of a philosopher king. This august and glorious person was in reality the hierophant of the mysteries. The golden age comes to each and every human being when the divine self within him is the ruler of his mind and body. When the superior part of man governs the rest, there will be no further conflict or contention within the soul or the flesh. United in all his parts by the noble resolution of the spirit, man is a self-governing empire, dedicated to truth and obedient under law. Then neither his thoughts nor his actions will escape from the circle of his virtues, and he will stand in the adit of the everlasting house. Thus, rites and ceremonies all tell the story of growth and a kind of evolution by which man ascends, not merely by the extension of his body, but by the maturity of his inner life. Each of the great world teachers stands as a priest of these mysteries, for he reveals the potential of all men. When the candidate for initiation becomes aware of a larger life locked within the smaller one, he cannot resist the implications which attend to this realization. He can deny all argument, but not the stirring of the soul within him. As man's wonder grows and his understanding deepens, he will walk the old road that leads to the mystery of the second birth.
It's funny because up until the moment where you said uh, when a candidate goes through initiation, I was thinking to myself, like, damn, it sounds like initiation up until that point, and you said it. I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
We're all being initiated. This with
Right.
the turmoil of the day, that all this distraction, all this separation, all this the separation is very much in our face. There's a lot of distraction to keep you in that separation. But there's this underlying
Keep you from
unity
seeing the
in
truth, to
us.
keep you from seeing the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this underlying unity that is emerging, and I think a lot of people have awakened to it since COVID, but there's still a piece of us that is stuck in the material, right? And it goes back to what I was saying about the spiritualists, right? These spiritual women who tend to like cheerlead for the feminine, right? And get lost in their vessel, like the gender of their vessel, and cheerleading the feminine, and which it's not a problem, but like if it becomes like grabbing onto the feminist movement, like the feminist movement is there to divide us, right?
The toxic part. Yeah.
Toxic. It's like getting to going too far into identity, right? Is identifying too much with that feminine aspect of like, yay, girls, girl power, right? And
Just like
there's
toxic masculinity, just like toxic masculinity, it's a
100
thing.
100%. It goes both ways, and I
Right.
think what we have to do. I have this kind of realization. I haven't smoked weed much in the last nine. I haven't smoked weed at all in the last 9 months since. And when I went back to LA, my brother had it at my disposal, so I was able to partake. And I hadn't in 9 months, so obviously it's like I'm a virgin again, right? And I get a lot of downloads every day, and I told Alex it's like zip files, right? It's like I download the zip file, and the weed helped me unzip the file. So all of a sudden, I have access to all these downloads that had kind of been stored away in my subconscious. And the weed, when you use it properly, marijuana has that effect, right? It has a very positive effect spiritually if you can use it ritually, or I think the habitual is where we kind of get lost. And that was kind of one of the realizations I had, because I did it like not doing it 9 months, and then I did it for a week straight, and then towards the end of that week I started having backlash. But like the first couple of days I partook after not doing it for 9 months, I was able to access different downloads that I had and unzip them and really make sense of them. Right. And one of the downloads I had was, this as above, so below principle of alchemy, of hermeticism, the Hermes law of Hermes, as above, so below. I really perceived myself as its own universe, right? Like there's all these different aspects of me that make up me. Almost like there's this universe of different individual me's coming together in harmony to make me. It's
Right.
really kind of hard to explain unless you're really like,
Well,
but like,
if you've ever seen Into the Spideyverse, and you can see all the different variations of Spider-Man and how they all interact, it's kind of like the same thing, except for you're living them all at once.
yeah, it was really like kind of groundbreaking, because it was like I broke through to this understanding of like the fractal, like really like perceiving it myself being a fractal, but also being a part of the larger fractal. But then like you can condense down this part of the fractal to just me, which is the part of the universe that's me. And then there's a universe within me, and all the different individual cells make up me, but like I almost was able to see the individual cells as a different me. Almost like remember that part in Being John Malkovich where Malkovich goes through into. Have you seen that movie, Being John Malkovich?
Oh, dude, it's been so long. It's been a long,
So
many.
so okay, I'll go through it real quick. So this dude finds this basically portal into John Malkovich's mind, right? And John Malkovich finds out about it, and he goes through the portal, and then all of a sudden he goes into this world in the portal where everybody's him. Like everybody is just John Malkovich. Like even the women, right? Everybody is just a different John Malkovich.
That's funny.
So that was kind of where I was at on that particular trip. It was like I went into myself and perceived a world where everybody was me,
I know
almost like
my
we
brother
do
would
when
say.
we're dreaming. Like it's
I know my
something that
brother. My brother would say that's some quantum shit.
it's basically what it was, dude. It was accessing a reality of maybe a dimension that is just Brandon. It was just the dimension of Brandon and all,
Universe
and
of Brandon.
how the entire universe of Brandon is working together to create to make this Brandon, to make this individual, right? But energetically, I think that's exactly how it works, right? Like all these cells working together are creating me, right? And on a certain level, that's probably how it is. And when we're dreaming, when you're dreaming, like if you can access your dream state, you're really your dreams are even when it's like say you're in my dream, right, Alex? If I perceive, oh, that's and I can tell myself that's Alex. If you really perceive it properly, it's Alex, but it's also Alex as you, right? Like it's like when I perceive it, it's really just you with my face on it. It's weird. It's like, but that's how fucking strange our reality is, right? It's almost like when you
Well,
look at a looking through a kaleidoscope, or like if you look,
it's
uh,
basically a world of Agent Smiths of all you.
yeah, pretty much. It's really hard to describe, but it's that's like other dimensional perception. Is you see the fractal on a level that normal 3D reality, it's really hard to put into words.
Is,
Because
is it is it safe to say that like in that from that perspective you're able to see, I guess, how all perspectives would play out because you're able to see from all their eyes or from all their perspectives?
well, it makes it easier to understand how we can all be one,
Okay.
but also be separate entities, right? Is like
Mm,
if we were all since we're all a piece of God, right? If you look at the oneness and how when you really like come to understand, and maybe you don't fully process it, or maybe it's like you know that it's true, but it's really hard to grasp when you're in the body, when you're fully engaged with the 3D reality. You see different people, right? But like understanding wise, I know that you're another me, right? Like, and I'm another you. It's
right.
like um perceiving myself in this way, in this particular um marijuana high. It made it easier for me to conceptualize the fractal as a whole and how all of us can be a piece of
Come
God at the
together.
top and
Come
come
together.
together, and how God is the Brahman playing all parts, because I am the Brandon playing all parts within the universe of Brandon.
Mm,
So I can also see how on the macro scale it applies when
yeah.
you, yeah. So that might be deep, a little too deep for some people. But if you've
Yeah.
ever done psychedelics or experienced something like that, um,
I can totally appreciate the perspective though.
I, th- I think a lot of people who've done um, either psychedelics or maybe smoked weed have maybe experienced what I'm talking about, but maybe not been able to understand what the fuck they're seeing.
Maybe if people have gone down K holes, they'll understand.
Well, yeah, it's because well, like ultimately, what you're doing when you're taking these substances is you're opening up a portal in your mind, that you're just your perception shifts to where you're not just seeing it through your normal 3D mind. You're opening up a portal of perception that makes you see it differently,
Yeah.
and
But
it's a
we are not
part of.
we're not advocating, by the way, just saying, be safe out there if you choose to do stuff. We're not necessarily telling you to do anything.
Well,
Just a little
especially in this
disclaimer.
day and age where things are laced with fentanyl and stuff.
Oh
Um,
man, yeah.
it's uh, it's a crazy world out there, but um, yeah, I think whether it's ayahuasca or DMT or acid, mushrooms, anything that alters your perception, what it's really just doing is tuning you into a different frequency that's probably always there. It's just that you don't have the faculty to access it until you open that portal of your perception,
Yeah.
and then
Or,
it's
or you lose,
accessible.
or you lose those inhibitions that you've put upon yourself because you in your conscious state, like we, as much as we care to like say we don't, we're trying to be conscious controllers of our reality, and so we have inhibitions, that and stuff that we place on ourselves. I don't think that we are fully conscious of just how strong and powerful we can be if we let go of some of those limitations.
Well, I think also like
And I may
you
have said
can
that wrong, but you know what I'm
when,
saying.
no, but when you can grasp things like the double slit experiment, right? You know what that is, right?
In theory, I have an idea of it, yeah, but if you want to explain it,
So the
it'll help
double
me.
slit experiment was it was an experiment of light particles, right? Where
Yeah.
and you guys can look it
I know
up.
how to do I know how to do with reality. That's all I know about it in
So the
context.
double slit experiment was an experiment into the nature of light, right? Observed versus non-observed light particles, and they found um, so they had a light source, and then they had a wall, and then they put holes like slits in the wall, and then they beamed the light and observed it, right? And there was a observable um, beam, right? There's a particle, right? The light was a particle when it was observed. So it created a pattern when the light would go through the wall, through the slit in the wall, and hit another wall that was back here, right? So you have the light source, you have the wall with a slit, two slits in it, and then you have another wall over here. So when the light was observed, it would create a predictable pattern on the wall, right? So it was a particle, it was a beam, it was a particle, set of particles. And then they did it where they turned the light on without observing it. And the pattern on this wall behind here was scattered all over the place, right? So light behaves differently when you observe it. When it's observed, it's a particle. When it's not observed, it's a wave. And so what that says about our reality
It's
is that
conscious.
yes, well, and like consciousness observing reality changes it. So um, light is either a particle or a wave based on observation, and that can translate into all of reality because what is all of reality? It's really just light energy
Like, yeah,
condensed into matter, right? So
it's vibrations and frequencies.
yeah, so when you understand this principle and what this experiment was really revealing about reality, it really it gives credence to the holographic Earth theory, the hologram that we're really just in this hologram that um, it changes based on our perception, on our observation. So what I think we're experiencing in these altered states is experiencing ourself as a wave. It's like we remove the observer, which is us, and we just experience ourselves as a wave. It's like, and we're all over the place. When we're in the 3D reality, we're observing ourselves and become particle, right? So it's our particle observation of the self and the reality. When you add this altered state of consciousness, you remove the observer, and you become experience. You experience yourself as a wave. This is just me throwing fucking paint at the wall. My own like trying to understand what is really happening in these altered states of consciousness. And I think that it's something with that. It's something about the observable versus non-observable reality. Like you open up a loophole in consciousness when you take these altering substances where you see yourself for what you really are, and when you're not observing yourself within the construct reality that is created by the observers. Like it's the observer effect versus the non-observer effect. I think these substances open up a portal of perception where we remove ourselves as the observer of ourself and experience ourselves as a wave, and it's more undefined. We're more undefined in that state of consciousness, so we don't see the world as a solid. We start to see through the
Veil.
the veil that most of this, like if you look at science, right, and the atom, most of the atom is into space. Like this that I'm knocking on right here, my computer, my head, it feels like a solid, but really it's mostly empty space. The only thing that really brings it into a vibration that is observable is the observation itself. So when you remove yourself from the observer seat and just experience, then you're experiencing this weird concept, this weird reality that is more um, random, I guess you could say. I don't know. It's This is, like I said, this
Yeah.
is me throwing paint at the wall, trying to understand these different states of consciousness and what are we really seeing and what are we really experiencing. Maybe we're just experiencing ourselves outside of space and time, and that's what's distorted about what we see and experience during these altered states of consciousness. Is like we're time is ultimately an illusion, and when you remove yourself from the observer seat in the 3D reality and rise above that perception into a different state of perception, you're perceiving reality outside of space and time, and it distorts what you're observing. Distorts the perception. It distorts the form because light is a particle or a wave based on the observer, based on a biological entity observing light. It changes it. It's really fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah, that's deep, 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 deep stuff.
Quantum physics and these rabbit holes of what reality actually is very, very interesting. It's very fascinating, and it makes you start to question everything. You question everything, and you understand that this isn't the end, right? This is just some kind of um, testing ground or
No.
experience
So
mode of this consciousness that it's it almost like frees you from this fear of death because you know that there's something beyond this, and right now you're just in this vessel experiencing this space and time, and
well,
when you get real deep into like transcendental meditations, you're able to uh, go beyond the form of the body and really perceive things outside of space and time. So anyway, we're only got a minute and a
that
half left.
that that being said, I just want to keep really just keep in mind, everyone, we're going into July. Uranus is going to Gemini. Either you're gonna come, go batshit crazy or become a stable genius. Just understand, be conscious of your thoughts, be cognizant, be aware, and be mindful. Meditate. Don't be impulsive. Think upon things before you take action. Everything has implications. Everything has cause and effect, reaction, all that stuff. And we love you. I love you, B. Love you, audience. And please come back, and we'll hopefully do this again soon.
Just realize that the things you're perceiving, the reality we're in, is going to try to pull you away from your peace, pull you away from your understanding, and get you to be in a fear. And ultimately it's cliche as fuck, but love, being in that state of love and understanding and knowing, being in that state of love, understanding and knowing, and don't be pulled by the fear or the polarization or the illusion. Just know it's an illusion and power through with love, and everything is going to work out. It has to, because that's the only way it can. All right, that's it for today. Love you guys.
Seek the strength of no desire. It is desire that is making you weak. It is no desire that will make you strong. It is desire that is creating continuous storm in you. It is no desire that will bring stillness. And a stillness that comes on its own is authentic. It is not a kind of hypnosis. It is not through mantra. It is not through any device. It is not through any trick. You are not trying to pretend to be still. You are simply still. This will give you a new birth. You will be reborn. Jesus says, unless you are born again, you shall not enter into my kingdom of God. I say the same to you. But the rebirth is a state of no desire, a state of no mind, a state of total stillness.